All right, y'all, welcome back again to the KSR YouTube channel. Once again, it's a beautiful looking day in Florida, but some things have happened and it's freaking freezing. I mean, for most of you, it's probably not. Like it's like 45, but that's cold for us Florida people. I mean, yeah. And unfortunately, which hopefully I get this video edited pretty quick, but I guess the way I understand it, the hurricane that's coming through and it looked like has just had a major impact on Jamaica is drawing this low pressure area down that's bringing the cold front. Anyways, hopefully it's not as bad as we think it is, but it doesn't look like a category 5 hitting Jamaica. It's going to be very tough for that island. I've been there a couple times on vacation many years ago. Was actually looking to go back, possibly maybe next year, but we're gonna have to keep our eye on things. But yeah, I'm cold. I'm here first thing this morning, before everybody else gets here. Gonna put some work in on the Blazer today, which is what you guys are probably mostly here for. But yeah, we're gonna show you some things and get some work done. So here we go. All right, and as usual, thank you all for watching the channel, and a huge shout out to everybody that's a new subscriber. Welcome to the channel if you're new. Like I see the analytics, there's probably like 50% of you that are subscribers, 50% of you that aren't. So if you like the stuff we're doing here in the shop, building race car stuff, or you're just here for the Cletus associated content, we appreciate all you guys that are watching because it's awesome to have everybody tuning into our little shop here. And on another note, I know the 2.4 hours of Les Mullets is coming up. I haven't seen the driver's list yet, but I imagine it's going to be another stacked one. So if you want to come to that, I would already start looking at buying tickets now. I assume they're already available. I haven't checked that. I probably should. But if not, if you're not going to come in person, freedomplus.com, spelled out FRDM and then the word plus.com. I'll just put a picture of it in the, yeah, that'd be the easiest way for you guys to see it. Because it just sounds Freedom Plus. All right, I'm being silly. All right, so anyway, like I said, you can get the pay-per-view at freedomplus.com. Link right somewhere around here. Anyways, but wearing my Motion Raceworks hoodie today, which, it's an older one. They don't offer this one anymore. It's a really good one. But one of the things that's been going on behind the scenes on this thing is we've been ordering a bunch of parts. So as you guys may know, with like a project of your own, there's a good bit of time that might go into that, especially on something that's a large project. So I mentioned one of the things earlier we were going to do was going to be replacing the steam port kit with one that goes under the intake manifold, because I remember back when we originally built Mullet with the LS that using the Frankenstein intake, we were able to reshape the Motion Raceworks steam port kit. So we installed it and then kind of tweaked it down a little bit so that it would tuck under here. And that way it's kind of all self-contained. I'm also going to drill and tap the water pump so that the return goes into here, so it's all kind of self-contained. So I'll probably pop the motor out of this, but we'll drill and tap this to return. Actually, you know what? I could just do it right here. That way, if we ever decided to change anything, it's just in the fitting, because there's plenty of meat here to be able to drill and tap that. These things are, I can feel that it's plenty thick enough to accept an 1/8 inch NPT tap. So yeah, maybe we'll just do that there. And that way I'm not actually having to take the water pump apart to drill and tap it and clean out all the shavings. I'll just take the fitting out. So we've got that ordered, as well as a bracket for the shifter, because I believe what happened is when they got this shifter, they did not get a mount for it. So you can see we've just got that going on with the shifter. And I'm gonna cut this off anyway. I'm gonna cut this out. I'm also gonna cut out the back bars today, cut out the battery shut off thing, because we're gonna use a different one since the battery is going up in the front. And I'm gonna go ahead and strip all the wiring out of this thing. Just gonna go ahead and do it. I've spent some time kind of going back and forth and kind of going through things for how I want to wire some stuff up. And like I said earlier, I plan to reuse like the body harness for the headlights and taillights and all that stuff. But one of the things we're doing to try and get some weight out of this thing is like this factory wiring harness that's going down through the car. We're getting rid of that. We don't need that. That way, this thing will have fresh wiring. Well, I mean, like, we'll have only the wiring we need. So that way I mean, obviously all the engine stuff was pretty fresh, but like even like that little pigtail right there, I think that's the factory like dome lights and maybe the mirror light. So I might blast that with the power probe and see if I can make the mirror lights work, maybe, or the factory dome lights. But if I can't quickly, I'm just ripping that stuff out, because if it doesn't need to be there, it's extra weight that we don't want to drag down the racetrack or drag down the street. So, time for me to shut up and get to work. And we're also going to, which I mentioned in another video, we're going to weigh all this stuff. I've already got my scale box out right there. So we'll get those out and I'll weigh that in the next live footage. But for now, time lapse, me doing some cutting. Here we go. got 99% of all the wiring out of the car, as well as all the different relay modules. The main relay board still mounted in there. Gonna use that, and we're gonna try and simplify some of the wiring so we don't need all the extra little relay modules. I figured out what most of them were doing, and then the more I thought about it, I'm just like, rip it all out. And more than likely, this headlight harness here, because that's all this is headlight wiring, and I don't know what that is. I actually cut that off, but it's just dangling loose on the inside there as well. But anyway, most likely I'm going to do some kind of bulkhead connector so that you don't have to just worry about having a harness like this. So I'll be able to take this harness, cut it, add like a Deutsch connector to it. I would imagine there's less than 12 wires in here. Yeah. Yep, so we should be able to make that all connect through a bulkhead. Same thing we're gonna kind of do with some of the other stuff like the injector harnesses. I like to have those on a separate deal so you can switch what's controlling each injector harness. We'll get into that later, in later videos when we start rewiring the thing. But like I talked about in the last video, whoop, almost fell down. But like I talked about in the last video, we're going to not only move the battery, but change the battery. And I mean, a lot of you guys may have an Optima battery in your car. That's a super common battery. I used to have one of those in my Cutlass. I know I do still own a Cutlass. It's up there. I'm gonna work on it again, I promise. After this thing's done, we're gonna work on the Cutlass a lot. And hopefully y'all stick around for that. It's my first car, so I've got a lot of sentimental attachment to it. And it's gonna be a lot of excitement, I guess we shall say, with me getting back in my own personal race car. But anyways, right now I'm having fun building stuff for everybody else. And anyways, with this thing being in the back of the car, I guess I could grab the push off switch, but that really doesn't matter because we're going to use something similar to that again. But with all of this stuff, so we've got the battery in the back, the mount, all of this heavy cable to get from the back of the car to the front. Now, one thing I don't think that's in here is the alternator cable. It's wrapped up because I see the ECU cable. No, I think the alternator charge wire is somewhere over there. But just in that weight right there, oh, it's more than 6 pounds. There it is, 56 pounds. So just in that is 56 pounds. Now the battery we're gonna use is gonna be less than 10 pounds. And then I hope to only use about 10% of this wiring. So the idea with that is the closer you move your battery to the heavy sources or the heavy draws on the battery, like say your starter and your coils and your injectors and headlights and fuel pumps, which fuel pumps still be at the back. But for the heavy stuff like your starter is going to be your most draw in your entire system. The closer you move your battery to that starter, the smaller your wiring can be, and it still be adequate to carry the amperage that you need to spin the engine over. So we will not need the giant, welding cable like this when we put the battery 2 feet from the starter. And it will also be a much smaller battery, like I mentioned. So probably not going to do anything fancy, but I mean, even these batteries are getting pretty expensive, like a good battery. So we're going to switch to an affordable lithium, not a 16-volt deal, nothing super wild and crazy, but an affordable 12-volt battery that, a lot of you might want to use in your own project. The lithium stuff is getting so good these days, I feel like, that for any kind of racing vehicle, when you can literally dump probably from this right here, if we don't lose 45 pounds of that weight, let's just say 40 pounds, because then that's estimating a 10-pound battery. I think it's going to be about a 5-pound battery. Maybe the same battery we used in the Corvette, similar engine. That's a LS, which actually this is a 427, so got a little extra stroke. Gonna need a little more amps to kick it off. But maybe we do a 5-pound battery and there's 5 pounds of wiring. So that would literally be 46 pounds less than what we're gonna do there. So on top of that, let's get all this off of here. So just that battery. All right, had a phone call there come in, kicked me out of taking a video. So anyways, along with battery stuff, we are also going to be doing something lightweight with this carpet. Now, you guys might say, well, what if we just leave the carpet out? Well, that's one option, and obviously the lightest option, but we want this thing to be kind of classy, have some carpet. I need to find some interior panels. If anybody has some nice, decent quality, I think nicer quality, Blazer rear interior panels, let's get some of those. We'll buy them from you. If you want to send them to be a part of the project, we'd be cool with that too. So, but I'm going to show you how heavy factory carpet is. Give me just a second. I got to fold this stuff up to make it stay on the scale. All right. All of the carpet, the factory carpet, piled on top of the scales. And if you didn't see, I zeroed the scale once it had the wood on there. So it weighs 0 when it has the wood on top of the scale. So that's another 44 pounds of weight. And what I plan to put back in its place, actually, yeah. I'll show you guys the Nova over here. What we plan to do with the Blazer is going to be to use some of this lightweight, I believe it's called ozite carpet, but look at that stuff. So it doesn't have padding underneath it. It just gets glued down to the floor, or for like what we did here with some removable mats, you can see we had the upholstery shop just kind of do some edging around it. They put glued a little sound deadener to the bottom of it, but under the seat and on the transmission tunnel, that's all glued down. And then we have a floor mat kind of over here. May not do all that with the Blazer. We'll see. Maybe we will. But this stuff, this right here, maybe weighs a pound. Let's go see. We got the scales on. So the upholstery shop also did us a custom back seat. Because, yeah, Reno's going to have his kids ride around back there. They did a package tray. Yeah, and the windows are old and scratched up. And she's dirty. We'll get her polished up before that Reno gets back. But did a trunk carpet. Same deal. Super pretty. Finishes it off really nice. Makes the car a lot more enjoyable just to use because it doesn't have all that rattly, tinny sounding when you're just driving the thing around. I mean, yeah, race cars are race cars, but all right, so from 44 pounds, toss that onto there. 44 pounds. Really? So apparently it weighs less enough that it's taking, like, right there, the weight might be like, I don't know, 43.6. So we're obviously less than a pound for this. So you can see that's a decent sized carpet right there. So I think even doing all the way to the back hatch, there will still be less than 5 pounds of carpet in the Blazer when we're done with it. So that's another 40 pounds. So 80 pounds between the battery and the carpet. And the thing wasn't, I mean, super crazy heavy. Like, I've got a goal weight for the car. Like, we're doing a few things to try and lighten it up here and there, but I would love to have it like 3,000 pounds with driver. We'll see if we can get it there. Maybe, maybe not. But anyways, you guys can see it's dark outside. And as cold as it was this morning, Florida's doing Florida things. And it was 85 this afternoon. And huge shout out to our buddy Cleet. You guys probably saw that he flew back and forth down to Jamaica in his PC-12 turboprop. I haven't got a ride on that one yet, and I hope to one day. I actually messaged him and said if he needed the help, I could go down there with him, but he's just piloting, I think, back and forth. I mentioned earlier that I had been to Jamaica and stuff many years ago, and had planned to hopefully be going back, you know, maybe next year. Actually, we're looking at it for this year, but possibly for next year. But I really like Jamaica. It's a cool place to go. So hopefully I know that island got wrecked down there. So you guys keep them in your thoughts and prayers, because they're gonna need a lot of help to get back on their feet. GoPro's turning off. So that's gonna do it for me tonight. I'll be back on this tomorrow to continue along with you guys and get some more stuff done. Oh, got the rear bars cut out. Maybe you saw that. And I really worked on polishing off all of the tube. So the idea, aside from it just being on the ground, the idea is that where I cut them off up there, you can't even tell that it used to have something welded to it. So also tomorrow morning, first thing, I'm going to get the frame. So we'll have that to show you guys. And then see how that looks, and maybe get it back under the truck. Don't know. I gotta mock it up and see if the frame will bolt right to the body, or how much I need to cut out of it to make it bolt right to the body with some big washers, and maybe I just make some little pieces and weld the body to the frame. But we'll show you more of that tomorrow. And boom, just like that, there's a frame in here that's fresh from the sandblaster. And they did a awesome job with it. And unfortunately, I had to haul it home in the rain. So there's a couple little spots that have a little bit of surface rust on it. But the good thing is, for the most part, it's just gonna wipe right off. A little bit of grinding on that. Most likely, this is getting cut out because I am going to drill these out and then weld a cross member that not only incorporates the mounts for the gas tank, but it also puts the shock brackets on something that's a little more robust. And then the idea is to land the new down bars from the main hoop, land those on that cross member. And that will give us sturdy triangulation down to the rear shock mounts, which is definitely what we want there. And while this thing's here, you know, I can't help myself. We got to go ahead and cut some stuff off that doesn't need to be there. This is going to go. This is going to go. Obviously, I said this was going to go, and we'll weld in a cross member that it'll go all the way out here, and I'll weld it to the back side of this. And then, you know, it'll weld to the top there. I'm going to cut these out because that pressed in bushing is heavy and not necessary. All these little plastic ties that were there. I think this and this were the only two areas that I was going to potentially have a problem with hitting the floor. So this might have to go too. You know, why not? Probably going to cut off the factory sway bar mounts. And something cool that's coming, we're cutting these off. So this is the front mount for the leaf spring. And there's a company called Funkhauser Race Cars out of California. And they made the sliders for this thing, which we got to clean those up still. They're a little dirty. But they make an S10 slider kit for this chassis. And the deal with the S10s is the leaf spring is under the frame rail. So he makes a kit that, like, you cut the frame rail so that you can raise the leaf spring up, which also lowers the vehicle down. But the main thing I want it for, not only it's going to give us some ride height adjustability, yeah, and also the being able to play with the instant center, because where the front of the leaf spring is, where this bolt, that's where the instant center is on a leaf spring car. So similar in some ways to a ladder bar car, that it's just a fixed point. And the lower we make this thing, the lower it's going to put the instant center, which actually takes bite away from the rear end. Now, obviously this thing had plenty of bite before, but it also had, what was it, 52% of rear bias. So we're not going to have that rear bias anymore. So we're going to need to make the suspension dig in a little better so it really bites a hold of the racetrack. And he makes this cool multi-hole kit that it's also a box. So the plan is that once we grind this off and the main hoop is going to, you know, end up down here like an inch or so lower, well, then I'll make a bar that goes from that tube that sticks off there. I'll make a bar that just goes down and lands in on the front of that box. So it eliminates this stamped steel stuff and potential flexing issues and makes it to where it's tied to the actual roll cage. And then I may also come from, like, obviously we know our main hoop is here, you know, going up and over. I may tie from like the harness bar area, which is somewhere up in here. I may tie from the harness bar down to either the frame or also to that box, and then that will triangulate that box. So lots of exciting stuff we got going on here. And yeah, I just can't help myself. I'm going to grind off stuff like that, knock those out, whatever that was for. That might have been for e-brake cables. Those need to go. Grind off the old transmission cooler mount because we don't need that anymore. Grind off the old transmission mount tabs. Part of me really wants to cut and open this up because this out here is basically doing nothing now, with the exception of the limiters hit right here, but they weren't even using these limiters that are in the factory TRZ upper control arms anyway. And honestly, like, this little arm here is really not doing much. Like, the whole strength is in this area right here for the front coilovers where the bolt goes through right there. So just kind of a lot of cleanup work now that we've got the thing back, and it's just going to make the end product a lot nicer. I feel like a lot nicer anyways. And now it gets to the exciting part of fitting it and seeing just where it's going to fit under there. We also got the rear end housing back, and you can see it's all nice and smooth on the axle tubes now. Yeah, a little bit of the rust from my trip back, but we're going to use the same Funkhauser bolt through super heavy duty housing perches instead of the stamped ones that the thing had on it before. And then we're also going to do some kind of back brace and adjustable coilover mounts because we are going to put a longer shock in the back of this. I feel like with a leaf spring vehicle, anything that's going to have a decent amount of power, you want there to be plenty of room for the rear end to drive away from the body to plant the tire into the ground. Because as soon as that shock tops out, you lose all of your leverage to pound the tire into the ground, keep the tire hooked up, and keep going down the racetrack. Because if it's on the edge of the tire staying hooked up to the racetrack, as soon as it tops out the shock, it's going to spin. And that's true for a lot of different cars. You know, leaf spring, 4-link cars will do that. I see some of the really big power guys, they're topping the shocks out, but they're further down track and they're also wedging the car. So I'm kind of thinking that there's probably some rear aero that's affecting, you know, that wing goes from being flat on the starting line to being pitched up going down the track. So yeah, the shock tops out, but the wing is also pushing the back of the car down. Lots of physics and science and stuff that's beyond my pay grade. But anyway, that was a day. going and picking that up, going and picking up my kids from school, taking them to gym class, getting this out, and dealing with the rain this morning. You can kind of see it's still a little overcast, but not too shabby. But that'll wrap it up for this video. And thank you all so much for watching, following along. Subscribe, merch, winwithksr.com, all that good stuff. See you next time.